Hello, everyone. Welcome to Simple Balance Life session on tonight, New Horizon Mental Health Support Group session. And unfortunately, our speaker tonight was been trying to get on for some time, and there's some problem with computer wise. But Minister or Prophet uh, Vivian Peterson was going to come before us tonight, and she may be able to come on. We're just hoping she can. And she's going to talk about the effects of grief on leadership. The effects of grief on leadership. And she was I think she's from out west, and she's a chaplain. Now she's back in Virginia in the Petersburg area, and she's now working with the mental health department in Petersburg. And being a chaplain, and she had given me some information of what they go through. And so what that is, as leaders, and especially as ministers of the gospel, we are there for people by the grace of God. We are there for people. And sometimes you've got to be able to minister to your own family as they're going through grief. And I give you a good example of that. In 2019, I memorialized my brother, the fourth oldest sibling, the third oldest brother. And I memorialized or eulogized, however you want to say it, him. That was tough. Of course, we knew he was sick, and I had gone back home to visit him several times. And look at this now. In 2017, in September, we lost our oldest sibling, our oldest brother. Then in 2019, we lost the brother I'm talking about. Joseph was the oldest one, the first one of the children to pass. Then 2017, 2019, Robert, he passed away. He's the fourth, like I said, the fourth oldest and the third oldest brother. Then in 2021, lost the second oldest. So it was very emotional for me because it seemed like every 2 years I'm losing a sibling, and that was very difficult for me. And the last sibling died on 21, who was heavy into COVID. So I went back home to Ohaski to memorialize or eulogize him, and it was very difficult. Of course, we had to try to family come together. You're going through the process, you're grieving, you got to uphold each other. And then that day when I got on the pulpit to do what I had to do is bring the message, at one point I felt like I can't do this. I cannot, I don't know if I can make this or not. And so hold on 1 minute. I think we may be Minister Vivian. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, yes. But let me finish telling this right quick. I'm glad you got on. So that was a very difficult and trying time with me to stand up there to support the family, eulogize him, and keep my composure. I was grieving. So I'm going to descend. I'm going to step back now. Bring to you, like I said, this is technology. When it's good, technology is good. When it's bad, technology is bad. But we trust in the Lord. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and bring forth our speaker tonight. And she's going to tell you some things about herself, her history, her journey, and as a chaplain, and some of the things that she has gone through. Minister Vivian, it's in your
Hi,
hands.
everybody. I hope I'm not don't offend you, but I am from Virginia. I've been gone
Ah,
32 years. I've been gone.
okay. Thank you.
But I grew up in Appomattox in Buckingham/County because back in the day, it was hard for the buses to come and pick us up. We lived like on the county line. So my dad, I had to walk a mile to school, y'all, to catch a bus. I had to walk a mile. So anyway, to make a long story short, I ended up going to school in Appomattox, and um, it, a lot of people don't know that's where the Civil War ended. That's where Lee surrendered to Grant in Appomattox, and that's where I went to school. That's where I graduated from. Then to make my life a little more shorter, I moved to Richmond, Virginia, and I worked for the Richmond Police Department and another department, the water treatment plant in Richmond, Virginia. And then during that process, the God called me into ministry. And I left Virginia and went to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I sat under Carlton Pearson's ministry for 2 years. That was before the inclusion and all the controversy came about him. And at that time, I met and married my husband, and I moved to Lemon Grove, which is right outside of San Diego. And more, I went to church at the Church of God in Christ. My bishop was on the bishop of the board, of the board of bishops for the Church of God in Christ. And I learned, I was taught, I was disciplined, I was mentored by Bishop McKinney and his wife, Sister McKinney. And that process, uh, after my husband died, I started to work in the church office and learn the ins and out about church administration. And then I moved back to Oklahoma, and I started to work for the city of Tulsa. And to make a long story short, when the COVID came, I had COVID, and I was in the process of moving back to Virginia. The Lord told me to come back to Virginia. And I'm like, okay, Lord, I really don't want to go back to Virginia. Why can't I go back to San Diego? But anyway, I came back, the doors opened up and everything, and I'm back home here in Virginia. So I was attending the church, and the bishop says that they needed chaplains at John Randolph, which is now Tri-Cities Hospital. And that's how I became a chaplain. I took the training and became a chaplain. In the meantime, though, when I was in California, I was a chaplain before Mr. Peterson died. So that's my chaplain experience. So I've had over 30 years of office experience, including accounts receivable, accounts payable, all that falls. There we go. So that's how my life has been. My camera went out again, but I'm gonna keep talking if you all can hear me. You can't hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
we can
we
hear
can
you.
hear
We
you.
can
Go
hear
ahead
you.
on.
Okay.
Go ahead
Okay.
on.
So I wanted to use people in leadership and how they are going through pain. And you gave one of the examples that I was going to use about pastors. They are the pastors of the church. They are the head leadership of the church. Have to deal with the family, and not even some don't even know the family member who died, but they have the service at the church, and the family member that he knows. Pastors are full of compassion, and so they have compassion for that particular church member, family members, however members that attend the church. And they are still in the process. Okay, we got to plan the service. We got to get the undertaker. We got to do all of that. And what time is service? Pastor, can we have it then? Can we do this and all of that? But at the same time, he's not grieving, because he may know the person. Person might have been a friend of his too, or he's still grieving, but that's set on the shelf as he do what he needs to do. And a lot of times when we set things on the shelf because we're not able to deal with it at that particular time, then something else will occur. Another situation where, uh, say for instance, like people have pets, and people do grieve really hard over their pets. I know a lady that she was grieving so hard once they found out they had to put it down. She grieved for over a year, and what she did was she went and took a picture and sent it somewhere, and they sent her a stuffed dog, look just like her dog. And to some, it may be extreme, but it's a comfort to her. But she does have compassion for, as they said, fur babies, cats and dogs and stuff like that. And she knows that she can't allow it to become depression. And she was really mad. She was really mad for a moment. She was mad with God. She was mad with everybody that her pet had died. And I called and I prayed with her and talked with her. So she's fine with that now. But in the meantime, when she was going through that, we having prayer every Sunday night, every Monday night, every Wednesday night. The first person, everybody would pray, but then pastor would pray, but she would be the one who prayed. She would start to praying, and then she would just cry and cry. And as she kept praying, the healing was taking place, because you can tell in a person's voice um, when something is bothering them or upsetting them. And now she's okay with that. But it was just one of the things that she had to deal with. But most of the time, the stages of grief is really interesting. And a lot of people don't know about the stages of grief. And what I wanted to do was going to talk about the stages of grief. I have a PowerPoint, but the first stage is denial. And that's when the person, like, they don't believe that this is happening. They'll just think they're on vacation or they're gone somewhere, but they're in denial because they don't want that person to be gone from their lives. So that's the first stage. The second stage is anger. Now the anger, but also anger is in correlation with the person who has gotten the news that they are passing away. And anger is when they just mad with everybody. They're mad with everybody, even with the stages of death. With anger being one of them, they don't. They're just mad with everybody. They'll just, some would literally cuss you out, or they're like it's like they don't really care about anything, nothing. They don't even go take a bath. They just don't. They just know they're expiring, so they don't do anything. But even as an anger with grief, a person be mad. Like I talked about the lady that I know, she was angry with God because she's like, why, God? I know you're a healer. I know you can heal. You know what I'm saying? People know that God can do certain things, but if God don't do it for them, they angry with God. They stop going to church. They just stop, like, I don't want to hear nothing about God, all of that, because they blame God for not healing their loved ones. Also, too, it's like a bargain. There's the other stage is bargaining, where they try to figure out if there was anything that they could have done or someone could have done to keep the person here. Now, that right there, it can be, I don't know, kind of confusing sometimes, because they'll be bargaining who they're bargaining with if they're mad with God. You understand what I'm saying? Who are they bargaining with? But they just, it's like they're in this process. Well, why can't somebody help me? Why couldn't somebody help me? Or even with themselves is the main thing. They'll be thinking that I am the one. I could have done something. And that can lead to depression, which is another stage of grief. That can lead to depression. And depression is not a good place to be for any reason, whether it's the loss of a loved one or anything. A lot of times people will get depressed because they can't pay their bills. They can't get the car they want. They can't find the significant other they want. People will get depressed and they'll begin to feel lonely. And loneliness can turn to an isolation. And these things are the things that the enemy will try to come in full force with someone. Also, depression will have you to reflect on things because your mind is like all the negative stuff. And you got we have to pray for people who are, if they say that they're going to do something to themselves, we really have to give them a lot of attention. Because if they have made up in their mind they're going to do something to themselves, more than likely they will do something to themselves. So if someone ever said anything to any of us on this line about, I don't want to live no more, I don't have a reason to live, we need to give them more attention and get to the root of it, but also to maybe send them to professional help. Professional help. The other stage of grief is acceptance. But let me back up. The next stage after that is reconstruction, where you have to reconstruct your whole life without that person being in it. Say you have a spouse and you all are used to going out on certain days to go to dinner or go to the movies or go anywhere. It's the two of you together. Now that person is no longer here. So you have to adjust to that. You have to find something to fill that void that's there. And I have ways to do that. Then the last one is acceptance, and that's to accept the fact that the person is no longer here with you anymore. So with acceptance, there are things that we could do. Pastor Harvey, do you want me to talk about some of the signs of anger? Because there are signs that people are signs of anger issues.
You're fading in and out, so we can't hear you good.
Computer. It works fine.
Maybe it sounds like you sound like you moved mic. That's what it sounded like.
I'm just sitting here. Okay.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Can y'all hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
I was asking it is okay if you want me to give the 10 signs of, 10 of the signs of a person having anger issues. Because that's one of the things that will affect leadership.
Okay, go ahead on.
Okay, one of the signs is a frequent irritability. That means a person just irritated at everything and everybody. And there are things that anything can make them irritable. You know, they get up and they say they're washing their face and they drop the washcloth on the floor. They get irritable. It's just any little thing that's not normally something to get irritated about. Another sign is physical aggression. And that means that they will actually physically hurt someone. They may slap them, kick them, and which it goes along with the next one, verbally abuse, which they will cuss them and say all kinds of hurtful things. And even with that, even in the workplace, those things happen. And we have to be mindful and watchful because we can have, if you work on a job long enough and you're around a certain coworker all the time, you get to learn them a little bit. And that can let you see that there's something going on with that person. Some which, if you got to approach them with compassion and love and kindness and not to be nosy. A lot of people are just nosy. You're not going to be nosy. If they don't want to talk to you and tell you, no, I don't want to be bothered, then leave them alone. The other thing about with that comes resentment because they'll begin, if they recognize that you're not true and you're concerned for them, they'll start to resent you. And sometimes it's the boss. Sometimes it's the bosses, and they're the ones that are in leadership. And they can be resentful. And then they turn to the other thing they can do, they'll turn to substance abuse, alcohol, drugs, or just their whole behavior pattern, like coming to work late because they been drinking the night before, or they didn't get any sleep. And that can be very damaging to your health. Our bodies need rest. Our bodies need proper foods. And if we don't feed our bodies with the proper things, like the food and the water, then our bodies react in a negative way. For an example, it's like kids. They eat a lot of this sugary cereal. And then parents are wondering why they're so hyper. That sugar makes them really hyper. And they don't want to eat, they don't like to eat broccoli. They don't like to eat cabbage and cauliflower, the things that are healthy for our bodies. And I always thought that the stuff that is good for us, we don't eat. The stuff that's bad for us is what we eat and like. So in saying that, we must have a balance there. It's like I love ice cream. Y'all know I could eat ice cream every day. I love ice cream, but I can't do that every day. Now, I tried to do it at least once or twice during the summer months, but the winter months is when I do a little more. And people say, how do you eat ice cream in the winter months? Because it doesn't melt as fast. It doesn't melt as fast, so it lasts a little longer. But we have to, and drinking our water. And the other thing that I just experienced, y'all, it's not a good feeling, and that is not enough vitamin D. I was at work and the room started spinning. And I'm like, So I had them to call an ambulance. Well, what it ended up being vertigo, but at the same time, when they did my blood work and everything right before that, I was vitamin D shortage. And that comes from we don't get enough sun. We don't get enough sun. And it reminded me of when I was younger and back home, and my grandpa and my grandma used to go and sit on the porch in the sun. I'm like, you a little kid, why are they sitting in the sun? But our bodies need sun. It really do need sun. The other thing that can happen, relationship issues will arise when a person is grieving. And that's with any relationship, even if it's the pastor and the congregant, the pastor and the spouse, the congregants themselves, siblings, parents, all of that. It's because they are angry, they're confused, and they're hurting. And only time can take away that pain. Only time, and I know I'm being a little spiritual, but God, because when my husband died, that was a new pain for me. It was a new pain for me. Now, I've had relationships and they ended. People would come to the house and say, well, I had my father to die. Well, my father's dead. And then they would say I had a brother that's dead. They said cousin, uncle, aunts, all of that. All of that had already happened to me before Mr. Peterson died. But that is a different relationship with a spouse than it is with a sibling or parent or coworker or anybody like that, because the relationship is the two have become one. So when your spouse leaves, part of you are left. And I don't know how to explain that, but it's like you just missing part of you. And God healed me from that. God healed me. But it's sad because people take relationships and they let it dictate the rest of their lives. For an example, if a married couple break up because one cheated, the other one said, I'm not going to marry no man. All men are dogs, all women are just all of that. That is not the case. Everybody's is different individually. And even the relationship that they had is individual, because some may have been abused, some may not have been abused. Some may have had a good relationship. Like me and my husband, we had a good relationship, but it did not. I said, Lord, I'm a young woman. I want a spouse again. Okay, that's been 23 years now. Hey, but I'm still waiting on God and his timing, if that's what he wants. But we cannot let one bad relationship dictate the rest of our lives. And I'm going to ministry. Same way in ministry. If you have a bad relationship with the pastor, or the pastor didn't allow you to do this, or things happen at that church, I'm not ever going to church again. That's not a good attitude. The attitude is, God, show me where you want me to go. But I also have heard people say, it's no one church. If you keep going from this church to this church, maybe you're the problem. So, but anyway, I just, but we have to be mindful of relationships, even being in ministry, even with the leaders in the corporate America. Relationships are very important, and relationships is built on respect, on trust, and honesty and sincerity. And a lot of times relationships are not done that way. If you start off in a relationship on a negative note, it's probably going to end on a negative note unless you fix it. We have choices. God gives us choices to make. We need to make the choices that are best for our lives. So when we in leadership, and I want to say this, it's not about us so much, it's about the other person. If you give respect to that other person, they're more susceptible to give it back. If you talk in some kind of way to a person, whether in leadership or not, any relationship, you talk some kind of way to a person, then that is how that person is going to respond to you. For an example, I'm going to use me. Okay, I work for Hopewell Social Services. The lady came in there and she hadn't signed the kiosk. She got to sign the kiosk so we can put by name, by how you come in there. And she had waited a moment. And then I said, ma'am, did you sign in? Because she came, she said, well, we don't do like that in Petersburg. We just don't do that. I work for this. And I'm like, okay. I said, well, this is how we do it here. So she went and signed in. And I was the one who called her back up because there's other persons working, right? So I said, this is what we have. I need your social security number and your ID before we can give information out. So she said, well, you got a nasty attitude. I turned my head and I'm like, So I had finished with her. And when she said that, I said to the girl, I said, not today, just not today. And she said, what did you say? I stood up and I said, ma'am, have a good afternoon. You too nasty. So she called me. I didn't respond to her in a negative way, but that's what she did. But also in leadership, a lot of times, and this can be hard if you don't train yourself to do it, to be quiet. That's when I be quiet. You have to quiet your spirit. You have to quiet your mind. And most of all, your emotions. Because our emotions can get us in a lot of trouble. And that's part of, like, when we're grieving, we can get in trouble behind grieving because we want to do other things that we normally don't do. Another one of the signs of anger issues is remorse. Because a lot of times when you are so angry, you will say or do something and you really don't care. You really don't care. And you don't care and you still don't care. Even if the person apologized to you or apologies come, you still don't show no remorse. Like, I don't care. I said what I said. I mean what I say. That's not showing remorse. But that's why we really have to be quiet sometimes and just listen. And we'll learn a whole lot in the process of those that are in grief when we're listening and paying attention. Grief is something that all of us have experienced one time or another. A parent, a death of a pet, a death of a co-worker that you was close to, even like you go to the grocery store, and a lot of times if it's the same cashier, some people prefer the same cashier when they go to the grocery store, but when that person is no longer there, they will grieve. It's like the lady that was working next to me. I had only been at social services December, November, about 3 months, 4 months, and the lady next to me, she died. She had a massive heart attack. And I didn't know her well, but I grieved along with all the rest of us on our team. And I was like, okay, why is it affecting me? Because I worked beside her and had conversation with her, but I really didn't know her. But I grieved. And I grieved because she was no longer there. No longer. One of the things that she loved was peanut M&Ms. So if I go to the store or I see them, I'm going to always think about her because that was what she loved eating every day, peanut M&Ms. So there are things that we can learn if we are taught, because I was going to say choose. We can choose, but we have to learn to know how to choose. And everybody is not taught how to choose. They just respond. And when there's there's an action, there's a response. And a lot of times we have to learn how to not always respond. Does that make sense? Does everybody understand that? It's always don't make sense. The other thing I want to talk about is there's person is gone. And we start to, I want to, sometimes, not always, but a lot of times, and it should be the situation or the relationship or the animal or whoever is not no longer here or in our lives, we can move forward, if that makes sense. Because if you accept that this person is no longer in your life, okay, so what do? I need to move forward. I need to move forward. I think about that person. I want that person in my life. But you can't dwell on that or focus on that because that gives you negative thoughts. And out of negative thoughts becomes negative behavior. And what we want to do is try to avoid any kind of negative behavior because all negative behavior affects somebody at some given point in time. And when we grieve, we need to realize that we are grieving, and everybody do not grieve the same way. Everybody do not grieve the same way. Now, those of us who always go in prayer and talk to the Lord, we still act out, but we need to be mindful of our actions, very mindful of our actions. About our actions is the tone of our voice when we talk to others. Now, being a chaplain, everybody can't do that. Do y'all remember on the news months ago when the little boy passed out on the football field in Hopewell? That was my day to be a chaplain. So I get the call, I go down there, and cops everywhere, people are everywhere, people are driving up and everything. So I go, they know who I am in the emergency room down there. And she said, Miss Peterson, that's the mother right there. She's coming in the doors right now. So I walked up to her and I said, they called me, I'm here for you. I didn't call you. I don't need you. Okay. Now, a lot of people would have gotten offended and just walked and left. My brain was, and my emotions was, you just lost your son. So I don't know. You don't know what emotions will come out when you lose a child. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I kept praying, Lord, what I'm gonna do. He said, it was like, just hang around. So then another apostle lady I know, her sister had came into the hospital and she was leaving, and I prayed with her and she left. Then I noticed they were all gathered around outside the emergency room. I mean, probably about 50, 60 people. They were all gathered around out the emergency room, and I'm looking. Then it was like I went out there, and somebody was praying, and I stood there, and everybody was praying. And I mean, they were crying. People, these are 14 and 15-year-olds had called their parents. And so after the guy prayed, I said to one of the ladies, I said, ma'am, do you know who that was that prayed? She said, oh, so and so, whatever his name, the coach was. I said, he's your husband? She said, no, but he's a coach. And she called him over, and I took his hand and I said, sir, I'm Chaplain Peterson. That man broke down and cried on my shoulder like a little baby. I get teary-eyed and I get emotional sometimes when I talk about it, because I don't think I will ever forget that day, because it was just, I think it was either 14 or 15-year-old, but he had an underlying heart problem. And at that age, people don't be thinking that kids have no problems in their bodies. And a lot of times the doctors won't even look for a problem at that age. But after that, I prayed with him and I went back in, and the security guard said, well, the nurse want to see you. So I went back there, and they were changing shifts. So it was three of them saying, can you just pray for us? So we went in the room. They just got off. And it had been one of them weeks when they had 2 and 3 deaths. And if you working day back to back, it takes a toll on you. And I'm saying a toll, that was griefing them. 2 weeks ago, they called me off the job and said, you need to get to the emergency room right away. I'm like, it's something that happened to my church family that I'm close to, the ones that if something happened to me, they don't want to call, because my family lives in the DMV area. So I get over there, and she said, Chaplain Peterson in this room. Okay, a young man was passing away, and I prayed with them, and then he passed away right there. The doctor in the room, the nurse in the room, me, and the 4 family members. And I did that, and then I went back to work. I was like, Viv, why you had to go to work? I said, I had to go pray for a family, and the person was dying. So why you come back to work? That's why I say everybody can't do that. I got out of chaplain mode and went back to being an office assistant at work. That's why, people don't understand that you really need to know who you are and seek to know who you are on a daily basis. Because I've told many people many times, well, they say, well, I don't eat this and I don't eat that. I'm like, have you ate it before? No. Well, how you know you're not going to like it? They back up and look at me, and I'm like, you're right. Try something once. If nothing else, try it once. I say that to say this. I ain't going to try the parachute. I ain't going to try that. But try something once. And that's what I'm going to, in conclusion,
We can't hear you.
Did we lose you?
okay, what happened?
Okay, talk a little louder.
Now
Okay, all
we
right.
hear you faintly.
A lot of times people do not express their grief. They are holding inside. And when you hold things inside, it can make you sick. There are people who have literally died from a broken heart. they didn't share their grief. They didn't let it go. Now, not all cases, some did, but some just the pain was a lot for them to bear. The other thing I would like to suggest that you connect with others, because there are grief groups all over. There are grief groups, and you can ask for support from your place of worship, from your community, and from a loved one. A lot of times, people don't choose the right loved one to talk to because that person carries. They'll go tell somebody else, and they'll tell somebody else, but you need the confidentiality. So that's something we need to really think about, who we share our personal stuff with, even without it being grief. We need to be very mindful of that. The other thing is to ask for help. You need to ask for help. Um, like when my husband passed away, everybody was bringing me food. I didn't ask for the food, but that's what people do. They want to help. So, but if you're alone and you need help, don't just sit there and, well, I need to go get groceries, but you are not emotionally or physically up to getting groceries. Call someone and have them to come take you to get groceries. But nowadays you can call and have groceries delivered. But I'm particular about my fruits and vegetables. I don't want everybody picking my fruits and my vegetables. But you can get help, and you can reach out to psychologists, psychiatrists, and what's the other one? Those people. You can reach out to them. And a lot of times, and I know people say, well, I don't have the money, but a lot of them do offer pay according to your pay. What is it, scale? According to your income scale. You can do that. Also, you can have, like, you need someone to come and help you wash clothes or do stuff like that. And that is a very good help when somebody grieving. When somebody come in and they clean, they vacuum, they dust, they do things around the house to help you. And at the same time, there are times when you just want somebody's company, and you don't need them to say nothing. Just sit there with you. Don't have to say anything. Just sit right there with you and hold their hand if that's what they want, or just sit there. If they don't want to talk, let them talk. If they don't want to talk, don't force them to talk. We just need to let people know that we're there for them. And the other thing that happens that will help with grief is practice breathing. I know that sounds a little different, but practice breathing. Like, just take big breaths, breathe in and out. Like when you go to the doctor and the doctor said, breathe heavy, breathe hard, and then in and out. That helps calm you down, and it helps relaxes you. Also, another thing is to set some goals. Not no big goal like, well, I'm gonna go to college and da 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 da. Just set a small goal, like, I'm gonna go walk today. I'm gonna walk a half an hour today. Just little things. Set those goals and do those goals. They will help when you are grieving. The other thing is make sure that you're getting enough sleep. Because sometimes you might not be able to sleep because you be thinking about that person. But try to at least rest. Lay down. Just lay down. Just lay down and rest. And you can rest, but you're like, well, I keep thinking about that person. As long as they're good thoughts, let it be good thoughts. The other thing, what you can do is listen to music. Put on your favorite music and listen to your favorite music. And the other thing is that, like I said earlier, make sure you're eating a well-balanced diet and drink plenty of water. And the last but not least is forgive. Forgive yourself, because I'm sure that there were some negative thoughts. I had some negative thoughts. Forgive yourself, forgive others, and most of all, forgive the person or the situation that that deceased, because they people I've heard people say they're mad at the person because the person has died. They're mad at that person. Why did they die? Why did they leave me? Forgive them and forgive yourself. And on the spiritual side of it, pray and ask God to take away the pain, ask God to heal you, ask God to help you with everything that you're dealing with. Amen.
Wow.
Amen.
That was wow. Pastor Jay, you have any pointers? Anything?
You
Okay.
you can you can go ahead. You
Okay.
I
You
said you can go.
okay. You hit a lot of key points, and I know we're talking about the effects of grief on leadership, and this affects on anyone. But this time we wanted to merge the two because we do on the first Thursday of the month a leadership platform, and then of course this is the third Thursday of the month. We do the mental health, and so what I like what you've done, you merged leadership and mental health. And the mental health aspect is about grieving, it's i.e., what leadership go through. And the thing that touched me, and now everything was going good, and I think I remember that case about the young man, a young boy passing away, the football player, but you were saying what you had to do and how the mother, as we say back home, lashed out at you. You being a leader, being a chaplain, being a child of God, you had to keep your composure from being angry. At the same time, you are grieving. You don't know the person evidently, but and especially it's a child. That I don't know how I could have handled that. That's tough. That's tough. But I know with God we can do it. But that's pressure on you. And also I like that you gave tips. That's very, very important. You said make sure we breathe because we breathe out the carbon monoxide and breathe in the oxygen. And you know the damages if we get too much carbon monoxide inside of us. Then you're talking about sleep, not only sleep, but get some rest because sometimes many times we sleep but we're really not resting
Yes.
because we're tossing and turning.
Mhm.
Then you talked about reaching out to others professionally, spiritually, or whatever. And then whatever your music, especially soothing music, that helps. Then also, hey, your body needs replenished water and food, a well balanced diet. And of course, you talked about prayer as a believers, but forgive. And when you said that sometimes people are angry at the person who left them
Mhm.
deceased, they didn't have closure. And it could have
Right.
been a wonderful, great relationship or not, but it could have been a good relationship. But we feel like the person just, you could have hung on a little while longer. I know you were sick, but you didn't have to give up hope. So this really touched me tonight, and especially what leaders go through. And before we finally got you on, I had talked about eulogizing one of my brothers. That was one of the hardest things to do. And like I said, I'm a leader, a pastor, and even before, I mean, during that time, forget all that. This is my brother. But I knew God could bring me through, but it was tough. So I understand your role and others' role, pastors, chaplains, or whoever, even in the corporate arena. And you mentioned on your job how the lady who was next to you, you only been there 4 or 5 months, but you knew she was gone, her presence. So and and the other thing I like, and I live this, sometimes it's best you don't say anything to a person
Exactly.
because we can say the wrong thing when we think will happen, we're damaging. And I have taken that on when I don't know what to say, I'm praying, especially grieving in our position, because we just about a week ago, or Friday be a week, that we eulogized one of our daughter's church sisters. Her mother passed away, and we had to do the funeral, and to see the father, he's about my age, maybe a little older, our age, a little older. He he already was going through some things. He had a stroke, and when he
Right.
came up to the front, he almost passed out. And I'm standing up there, and I got to do this. So that was tough. So I thank you very much tonight of how you brought this so clear, because grief is real.
Yes, it is. Also, too, when we, a lot of times, and I'm not saying nothing bad about it in any kind of way, some of these things, uh, we can back it up with scripture. And it might be something to do at like a Sunday school class or a seminar or something, so the persons can understand what was happening to them. And with me, I did that. I went to a seminar and they talked about grief,
Mm-hmm.
and that helped me understand a lot of stuff that was going on and I didn't know, like the stages and all of that, because there are stages of death also. But the stages of death come, like they're angry, and acceptance is another one, because when they are told that they're leaving, they'll be angry, then they accept that they're going. So all of this ties into us being human beings, spiritual, living in a human body. Yeah. Yep. But it
Yeah.
was an honor to serve you all tonight and do this. And I'm hoping that those who's listening will get some understanding that they need about um, helping
Amen.
themselves when it comes to grieving.
Amen. And I want to say this too. Those of us, quote unquote, everyone is a leader, good or bad, indifferent, but quote unquote leaders, and especially spiritual leaders, we got, and I like some things, the things you said, because we have to realize we're grieving along with the family, especially if we are church members, family. Like I said, last Friday, I was grieving. It was hurt. I was hurting. Didn't know the young lady's mother, but to see the reaction of that father, it tore my heart out. And I'm thinking, how can I go on now? But God brought me through. But I was grieving for him. I mean,
Mhm.
we had gone back and forth, met them, and at the wake and all of that. But to see that father, a person who has had a stroke recently, basically collapsed, and they had to hold him up from hitting the floor.
Wow.
I was really grieving. That for me, that was tough. Like, Lord, how do I handle this? But God
Mhm.
gave me the grace. But I was grieving along with the family. So we gotta come to understand that even though we're leaders, we hurt too for the family. Like in our
Right.
case, we did not know that mother, but we met the family. So we were grieving along with that, then had to go through, the total procedure of the going
Mhm.
home.
One
So,
of the, oh,
mhm,
excuse me. One of the things that happened to me, it was like, I want to say maybe 2 weeks after my husband's funeral, one of the deacons at the church grandson was killed in the front yard. A drunk driver drove up in the front of the yard. He was well known. He was 15, maybe 16. He was in middle school and he was on the football team. So he was one of them, everybody liked it, um, players. And so the day of the funeral, they closed the school because everybody at the school basically knew him. And they closed the school and everybody was at the church. And I I had to step out of my grief. And I had to get in minister mode. I had to comfort these young girls that they probably never knew anybody who died. And they were falling all out, just crying. And I'm like, Okay, God. It's like, okay, God. And then another incident was one of the members at the church. He was special. I don't like to say the word retarded, or I just said special. And he was really a nice guy and everything like that. And he died. And this was right after Mr. Peterson had died, and within months. And they had the service. And a lot of times people do things different. Usually the the close family would be the first, but no, they were last. So when I saw Bishop reach over and tap his head, I almost lost it. Because everybody, even though he was special to each one of us in our own way because he was sweet and kind. And that right there, you you have to get out of yourself.
Mhm.
And it's hard. It's really hard, but with God's grace, he keeps us. He keeps
Right.
us. He keeps us.
Well,
That is so true.
Mr.
I
Vivian,
think
thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for coming on tonight. Remember, the first Thursday of the month is our leadership. The third Thursday of the month is our mental health. And everything we do is concerning our mental health. Everything we do is concerning our leadership, good or bad. And so we just thank God for all of our speakers. But Minister Vivian, thank you so much. I mean, I expected to be good, but the things and your experiences that you brought through, it had me in awe. And so we thank you. We thank everyone. Remember, if you would like to be on our platforms and or you know someone who would like to be on our platform,
yeah.
uh, call us, contact us. We'll be so appreciative. And as I always say, please let others know on the first and the third Thursday of the month we're on. Check on the media, social media, Facebook, YouTube. We got a go-to meeting. We got Instagram for some of our services. And so please do that. And we'll be so appreciative. Pastor Jack.
Yes, I just wanted to say thanks to Minister Vivian for Peterson for being on with us tonight, and you gave us a wealth of information, and I appreciate that. Sorry for the mix-up and the confusion with our systems and stuff going for tonight, but so grateful that you were patient. You were patient with us, and I can see you are in it for the long haul. So you stuck with us, and even though we still can't see you on camera right now, but you are still here, and I thank you for your perseverance and your push. Just wanted to comment on a couple of things that you said before we close. That I thank God that you a leader, because you were talking about the impact of grief on leaders. And so to be a leader, we all have to realize too that we have to empathize with people. And I think when we bring it in from a spiritual connotation, we are loving our neighbor as ourselves. We're considering others. There's so many scriptures that tie into this, but to understand, like you were saying, you put it so beautifully, that sometimes you got to step out of this role and step into another. It's almost like a mother who is expected never to be sick. The mother has to keep going. The mother has to keep doing, but at other times she has to realize that she too has to go back and get what she needs so that she can keep moving forward. And that's what we do as leaders. We continue to do what God has put in our hands. If it's helping and consoling somebody, stepping into another person's shoes to feel that they are hurting, and think about it could be us, and understanding that there are times that are going to come up in our lives that we're going to feel this grief and this pain that another person is enduring. But we got to step into it with them, because I heard you say that it's not about us at this point. It's about the other person, and it's about us being there for our brothers and our sisters. And that's what we've been mandated to do from God, to
Yes.
be there, to step in, stand in the gap for our sisters and brothers. And sometimes in the midst of all of that, we too are hurting. but we've got to persevere and go through it. And we know that God is carrying us. So we got to be there so we can say, Lord, help me to help them get through this, because I know that you're going to carry me through it. And then when the time comes, somebody is going to come and be there for us. And so I think it's so
Amen.
with the
Amen.
point that
Amen.
you made. And I would just like to say to all of us, let's learn how to value one another, value
Yes.
other people. When we start to
Amen.
value other people, then we won't have a problem with stepping in. We won't have a problem and knowing that, hey, it's not about me right now. It's about what I'm mandated to do, what my assignment is at this particular point in time. So I thank you so much for your
You're more
information
than
share
welcome.
on
More
tonight.
than welcome.
And if
If
I could
anybody
just say
have any
this one
questions,
other, you said one key thing about, you said last but not least, one of the things was forgive. That's a key
yes.
item that we have to forgive in order to move forward. And so, yes, if there is anyone who has a question that you want to put in the chat, and we can bring that forward to Minister Vivian tonight to see if you've got something that you want answered before we close, or if you want to put it in there later and we can address it later, if anyone have any questions. But I thank you, Isa. I thank you, Kevin, and thank you for those of you who have joined in with us tonight. I can't see, those are the ones that I see that jump out to me tonight, that have joined us in this live session. But we appreciate you and your time on this evening. Pastor G, I'm going to give it back to you.
Thank you, Pastor Jay. Thank you, everyone. Don't forget tomorrow morning and Monday through Fridays at 7 a.m. Breakfast with Us, brought to you by Simple Balance Life Ministries and Rock Faith International Ministries. Thank you very much. And we look forward to hearing from you. You, like Pastor Jay said, you can make comments afterwards, and we will definitely try to get to those comments. So thank you very much. Remember this: enjoy every moment of every day to the fullest, intentionally. Have a
Yes.
great
God bless you. Have a
Amen.
blessed week. Thank you for
Have a
joining.
blessed evening and then